All right, guys, we are just going all day today. You're getting 3 hours of Candace content because there's so much happening in the world. Obviously, we just covered the fall of Syria. Super important. If you have not watched that, go back and watch it. 2 hours with Scott Horton. Just very crucial that Americans understand what's happening in the Middle East now because we are implicit and complicit in everything that goes on. But anyways, we have to talk about Brian Thompson. I wanted to talk about the Brian Thompson, that's the United Healthcare CEO who was assassinated. Crazy story. I'm going to explain to you guys that are overseas why this story has really gripped the nation. Well, now they have named someone who they believe is the killer. So we're going to call him at this time the alleged killer of Brian Thompson. And believe it or not, and I believe it, he's an Ivy League student who liked the Unabomber, who was another Ivy League student. It's getting very interesting and MK Ultra E. Let's jump right into this. Welcome back to Candace. All right, so let's just sort of begin with the recap. And like I said, I have so many listeners from around the world who don't quite understand the American healthcare system. And you might have been startled to see that some people were celebrating or glad that the CEO of a healthcare company was murdered, and in a very sadistic way, really. So let's just start with me trying to explain that emotion, which, just to be very clear, I do not share it. I will never condone murdering people, vigilante system, none of that. But it's important for you to know that America's healthcare system is, in fact, a drug cartel, okay? It's a partnership between the government and private insurance companies to basically price gauge. They make ordinary procedures that should cost hundreds of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. So it is not capitalist. You will see people speaking about, well, capitalism and free markets, it's a failure. Look at the healthcare system. No, that is not an example of the free market system, okay? What is the free market? Ladies and gentlemen, in a free market scenario, you should obviously know how much something costs. That's pretty basic, right? You walk into a store, a shirt says it's $100. You say, oh no, that's way too expensive for a t-shirt. I'm not paying that. So you walk out of that store, and then you walk across the street to a different store, and it says, hey, we sell t-shirts for $20. And you say, sold. Okay, so the guy next door who's got it for $100, he's either going to lower his prices or he's going to go out of business. That's how a fair free market environment works, okay? In the healthcare industry, you walk into a doctor's office. You have no idea how much anything costs. They can't tell you. Sorry. They can only tell you how much things cost after you have had the procedure. You get sent a bill, and your insurance company pays maybe some of it, and then you kind of have to pay the rest. You pay deductible towards that bill that you don't know how much it's going to cost into the future. And you basically have to keep paying your insurance company in advance of you even getting ill or getting sick. And your insurance company also tells you exactly which doctors you're allowed to go to. You can't shop. You can't be like, well, I think this doctor's better. It's like, no, this is your healthcare plan. These are the doctors that you can go to. And of course, they're doing all of these deals behind closed doors, and the patients are completely blindfolded, okay? So what happens if you had just removed these insurance companies? What happens if you had removed these major insurance companies like Brian Thompson, United Healthcare? Well, everything good is what would happen. A great example of that is laser eye surgery. So that procedure used to be covered by insurance, and it therefore used to cost tens of thousands of dollars because they're like, we're making up the prices as we go along. Ha ha ha, $30,000. Then the insurance company said, you know what? We're not going to cover that anymore. We're not going to cover LASIK eye surgery because we consider it to be cosmetic. So guess what happened? Doctors started competing. Yeah, you had to walk into the store, you'd see the price, and the doctors had to compete with one another. Today, the average price of LASIK eye surgery for both eyes is just $4,100. That is the average price, 2023, $4,100 for both eyes. That's incredible. That really is incredible. And I wanted to explain that to listeners because, like I said, you may not be aware, it's a drug cartel. And so you have this guy, Brian Thompson, okay? Brian Thompson was the CEO of United Healthcare. They're big guy, big fish. He was preparing to host the company's annual healthcare conference, which was taking place at the New York Hilton in Midtown. He was set to announce the company's hugely profitable $450 billion projected revenue for 2025 because they're just stealing from people who don't have money, who can't afford procedures. They're owing their healthcare companies because they suddenly got sick. It is terrible. And here's the reality. When you understand that it's a drug cartel, you also have to accept that sometimes in drug cartels, people get murdered. Okay. I know that these people are wearing suits, but what they're doing is in fact criminal. I am really against everything that is happening. Hopefully, RFK Jr. will shake things up. But, anyways, back to our timeline. So you've got Brian Thompson, and he normally is accompanied by his in house security, which is paid for as a part of the job by United Healthcare. So imagine you work as a CEO of a healthcare company, and they're like, we're going to pay for you to have around the clock security. Like that's what the executives get as a part of their package, around the clock security. Now, if you're wondering why would an executive need around the clock security if they're in the health industry, it's because cartel lords make enemies. And they understand that. That's implicit in them giving them the security package. So for whatever reason, on this particular day, his in-house security was not with him that morning, despite the fact that they did travel with him from Minnesota to New York City. He lives in Minnesota. That's where his family lives. But for whatever reason, and that has not been made clear yet, they were not with him in the morning when he was made to be hosting and speaking at this conference, talk about how much more money they were going to make scamming the public. And at 6:45 a.m., he was supposed to begin his remarks at 8 o'clock a.m. Absent his security detail, Brian emerges from that Hilton Hotel in Midtown. And curiously, there's a killer lurking who seemed to know exactly which direction Brian would be emerging from. And he's just loitering nearby the exit. He then fires 3 times from behind, and we can't show you this video. I wish we could. I don't see why not. It's news. We could obviously say, like, but this is, it's violent, but it's important for people to see this because Brian's walking away and he shoots at him, and then his gun gets jammed. And he instantly unjams it and he shoots at him twice more. And at 6:48 a.m., the suspect was then seen riding an electric bike in Central Park. And that had been the last known sighting of the suspect. We've since then learned from CNN that the alleged killer, dropped a phone, dropped a bottle of water in an alleyway nearby. Very quickly thereafter at 7:12 a.m., so that shooting took place at 6:45. By 7:12 a.m., Brian Thompson was pronounced dead at the hospital, according to the police. Obviously terrible, but then things get really crazy because authorities then found engravings on the bullets that were used by the assassin. And the words that were engraved onto these bullets were deny, depose, and defend. Words which are eerily similar to a 2010 book, which condemns the insurance business. And that book is entitled Delay, Deny, Defend. Subtitle, Why Insurance Companies Don't Pay Claims and What You Can Do About It. Okay, so that tells us this guy targeted him for a reason. He is correct that, yes, it is all fraudulent and we should change the system. But no, we don't just go murdering people. That's not the way that we do that. Okay. Going back into our timeline, at 11:20 a.m., the New York PD released images that were taken at a hostel on the Upper West Side of an unmasked person of interest wanted for questioning in relation to the shooting. Now, this is funny because at the time, the internet was going, this doesn't look like our guy. The backstory of this is at the hostel, despite the fact that this man wore a mask the entire time, he took down his mask to flirt with the front desk lady. I think she said, like, let me see your face. And he like smiled. And so it is very like men always come apart with women. It's just like interesting that is how we were able to get this image, is because he was flirting with the front desk lady or she was flirting with him, whatever it is. Anyway, so they say this is the guy that we're looking for. And the officials began extensively canvassing all of the video nearby, again, led them to that hostel in Upper Manhattan. The employees at that hostel said they remembered him. They remembered him particularly because he was wearing that hooded jacket, which was identical to the shooter's, and because he never lowered his mask, save that one point. Police sources also told ABC News that the man was flirting with the woman who checked him into that hotel. The hotel's name, by the way, is High New York City Hostel on West 103rd Street in the lead up to the killing. And like I said, when she said, let me see your smile, that's when he pulled on his mask. That is how we got that image. Now, there was much ado about his backpack, a Peak design backpack that was recovered in Central Park by the NYPD that allegedly belonged to the suspect. It only had 2 items inside of it, a Tommy Hilfiger jacket and Monopoly money. So this kind of made it clear of why people were recognizing correctly that his jacket had changed, that the jacket at the hostel did not match the jacket, which we're going to show you, they were able to get some images of him at the Starbucks across the street or next to the Hilton Hotel, and he's wearing the jacket that he's wearing when he shoots. But you see that jacket right here that we're showing you, that's him at the Starbucks, there's no pockets on the side, whereas the jacket when he is at the hostel has two pockets on the side. Can we do a side by side of that, guys, so we can see? I don't know if we have it. Yeah. So you can see those jackets don't exactly match, and that threw the public off. But that now we were afforded this explanation that he perhaps changed his clothes, changed his jacket, if the jacket that he used on the scene was still in the backpack. Now, jumping back into Brian Thompson, a private funeral for the CEO was held. Obviously, the family had been devastated. People were trying to was wondering exactly like what exactly happened here. There were a lot of questions surrounding his wife. Like I said, people are then starting to theorize on the internet, talking about the discrepancies between the jackets. And I can tell you, people then started to look closer at Brian's personal life. Like maybe this has nothing to do with healthcare at all, they thought. Maybe this has to do with a personal situation. Well, a little bit about Brian Thompson. He's a University of Iowa graduate. He began his career as a certified public accountant. He didn't really have name recognition beyond the healthcare industry. But then, obviously, he became very big. And at the age of 50, he had worked for the United Healthcare Group for 20 years and had run the insurance arm since 2021 after running its Medicare and retirement business. And as the CEO, Thompson led a firm that, just so you guys are aware, United Healthcare provides healthcare coverage to more than 49 million Americans, myself included. And I can tell you this is a scam business. There's no question about it. That business run by Thompson brought in $281 billion in revenue last year. They were projecting even more. And yet the healthcare recipients have never been more unhappy. So what does that tell you? We also know that he himself was being paid, Brian Thompson, $10.2 million annually. That was his pay package. It includes his salary, his bonus, as well as some stock options and awards, which made him one of the company's highest paid executives. Now, regarding his wife, people were theorizing that maybe she put a hit on him. And that's because his wife, a woman named Polly Thompson, had actually been living in separate homes less than a mile from one another in Maple Grove, Minnesota for years. The Wall Street Journal reported that, and it got the conspiracy minds going on the internet. They have two children together. He purchased a separate home from her, $1 million home near his family, so that they could obviously be close enough to raise their children. Paulette spoke out. She said she was devastated. She doesn't know what happened, but she did say that there were some people that had been threatening him. She also issued a statement saying that Brian was an incredibly loving, generous, talented man who truly lived life to the fullest and touched so many lives. Most importantly, Brian was an incredibly loving father to our sons and will be greatly missed. Okay, now here's where things get a little bit weird. In 2021, when the insurer, like its competitors, United Healthcare, was widely criticized for a plan to start denying payment for what it deemed non-critical visits to the hospital emergency rooms. So essentially, you arrive at the hospital and they can just decide whether or not afterwards, because that's how it all works. It's afterwards. You're blindfolded. That actually, no, we don't really think that you should have gone to the hospital, so we're just going to deny you coverage. And so you're just going to get stuck with a $10,000 bill, because part of this price gauging is like you go to CVS and you look at Tylenol and Tylenol says it's $100 a pill, you're going to go, no, I'm good. I don't need Tylenol for $100 a pill. I can't afford that. The hospital, they just give you stuff and don't tell you how much it costs. Then you look and they're like, no, that's $100 a pill. And now you owe us $10,000 for a hospital visit that you were at the hospital for one night. I mean, it's that insane, guys. I'm not kidding. So United Healthcare took this position that they were going to decide after, like, play with people's entire financial lives. They said, quote, patients are not medical experts and should not be expected to self-diagnose during what they believe is a medical emergency. It's incredible. That's what the chief executive of the American Hospital Association wrote in an open letter that was addressed to Thompson, essentially threatening patients with a financial penalty if they made the wrong decision. Insanity, just absolute insanity. You go to the hospital because you think it's an emergency, obviously. And if it ends out not being an emergency and it's not life-threatening, then great. You're like, okay, amazing. And you're only going to the hospital because there's so few doctors that you can even go to under your insurance plan. You got to follow the doctor hours. Doctor then has to be available, especially as you get into the lower tier of coverage. They have way too many patients because people don't have the money to be able to afford the bigger plans. And they therefore are not paying enough, and they have so many patients in the waiting room, they can't even get an appointment for months. So that's why they're going to the hospital. They can't even get an appointment. I'm really telling you, I mean, it's awful. Okay. Anyways, I'm going to pause there because now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the alleged killer, I will say. But first, I'm just going to kick it to one of our advertisers, Goldco, because we're all wondering what they have in store for President-elect Donald Trump. Are they going to crash the economy before he gets into office? Are they going to kick off World War III? It certainly looks that way. I don't know what they're up to, but I'm also not waiting around to find out. And I don't think that you should either, which is why you should go to CandaceLikesGold.com to learn about my partners over at Goldco. They are the precious metals company that I trust. They're top rated. They have impeccable customer service, and they have supported this show since the very beginning. And for my listeners, they're going to give you a free gold and silver kit. This will teach you about how precious metals can protect your money and help you invest in the future. You could also get a 10% instant match and bonus silver on qualified orders. I don't want you to miss out on this, and this is a great way to help support the show. All you have to do is go to CandaceLikesGold.com. Again, that is CandaceLikesGold.com. Okay, so the assassin. Long story in the middle there about how they caught him. Obviously, I told you he got on a bike, and then it turns out that he got on a bus. At one point, they were fishing into a lake. People thought, are we looking for a dead body? Is the assassin dead? Are they looking for items that he may have dropped off on the way? This guy essentially disappears from Manhattan, where there's like a camera on every single block, and people are going, this is very suspicious. What we did not expect was for this individual to be an Ivy League graduate. Okay, again, we're saying allegedly. Obviously, we believe in due process. He has not been brought in officially. He hasn't gone through due process at all. But the would-be assassin, the alleged assassin, is a young man named Luigi Mangione. Okay, Luigi. Let me tell you a little bit about this guy that you're looking up on the screen right now. He is 26 years old. He bills himself as anti-capitalist. He's an Ivy League graduate. He was taken into custody. Here is the story of how. I don't know if McDonald's is having the best or the worst year ever, but after all of that, making it out of New York City, able to assassinate someone, and then this manhunt ensues. You want to know what broke him? He needed to get something from McDonald's. He was hungry, and he went to McDonald's. An employee which is 100 miles east in Pennsylvania, he was in a town called Altoona. An employee recognized him. He was like, I've been seeing this guy. I'm obviously following the story. People are obsessed. It's like a true crime narrative here. We'd never seen anything like this. Someone just getting assassinated like this, and how cool he was. I should also remark, if this is the alleged killer, Luigi was incredibly calm and collected as he unjammed his gun and then took a couple of more shots and really just kind of strolls away. So we're thinking, is this tactical? Is this like somebody that's working for the deep state? I don't know. He seemed way too calm. Well, that's how they caught him. Just a McDonald's employee was like, I recognize this person, and I'm going to phone this in, okay? What is being reported thus far is that he had a 3D printed ghost gun, similar to the one that was used on Wednesday morning against Brian Thompson. So they were able to find that on him, along with a gun silencer, plus a manifesto, and 4 fake IDs when he was arrested. I am flagging that as weird. Very suspicious, because how does a 26-year-old get 4 fake IDs? Like I said, he seemed calm. He had a plan of action. I don't know what is going on here. What we know about him thus far, Luigi, again, alleged killer, is that he's originally from Towson, Maryland. He, as I said, bills himself as an anti-capitalist, former Ivy League student. He was the valedictorian at his high school. This is not when you open up your yearbook and you think, what is this person going to be in the future? You never think the valedictorian is going to be an assassin. Like, that's not something that really crosses your head, right? I think Vivek Ramaswamy was a valedictorian in high school. He was. No one, like, that's what you expect valedictorian to go do. Like, maybe go run for president one day, not to be an assassin, especially someone that then goes to an Ivy League school. Okay. We have learned that Luigi has ties to San Francisco. He used to live in Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm interested in that. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in Hawaii. He has not yet been charged in connection to the death of Thompson, but he was arrested on firearm charges on Monday after that elderly McDonald's worker spotted him inside that restaurant in Altoona, Pennsylvania. We're showing you a photo of him. that he apparently just loves McDonald's, because this is another one of him smiling with Lion King. The NYPD commissioner, Jessica Tisch, said that members of the Altoona Police Department arrested him on firearm charges. And she said, quote, "At this time, he is believed to be our person of interest in the brazen targeted murder of Brian Thompson." Thompson was gunned down in Midtown Manhattan. Obviously, as we have already told you, this guy, Luigi, does not appear to have any criminal history. Again, not something that people were expecting. Police said that his name was not on their radar at all until that arrest in Pennsylvania at that McDonald's. And as I said, he was found with that gun and also wearing the clothes that matched the description of the suspect. And that is why she phoned it in. Now, a little bit more about him and his Ivy League career. He attended UPenn, the University of Pennsylvania, where he gained a degree in engineering in 2020. Before that, like I said, he was a valedictorian of Gilman School in Baltimore, where tuition costs $40,000 a year. So that signals to us that he comes from money. His family is likely going to have some status. A lot of times when you see people that go to UPenn, their families are connected in some way. And so this is not the typical profile that we have come to expect. People are now crawling through his social media, and they have found that Luigi, again, this is our alleged suspected killer, posted at least half a dozen quotes from the homegrown terrorists who plagued the nation for nearly 20 years with homemade bombs. That would be Ted Kaczynski. Now, this gets me into my conspiracy brain. Now, Candace has on her conspiracy hat because Ted Kaczynski was an MK Ultra recipient. Okay, so Ted Kaczynski, just so we're clear, he also attended an Ivy League school, okay? He went to Harvard and he was drafted into this MK Ultra program. So he did this really bizarre thing. He was a mathematics prodigy, abandoned his academic career in 1969. And it turns out that, yes, the Unabomber, all the things that he did, he was an MK Ultra recipient. We cannot forget that the universities were the ones that were employing these experiments. I am now very interested in that, how this guy's life took a turn and he turned into a vigilante for something that he would never have to worry about, healthcare costs, because he likely had some money. He also, like I said, took a liking to Ted Kaczynski. There were even more odd facts about this case for those of you that are following it. Brian Thompson, the victim of the case, was accused of insider trading and fraud before he was assassinated. Last year, the DOJ launched a probe into whether the private company of a nation's biggest insurer, led by Thompson, was unfairly restricting competitors and running a monopoly. In May, the City of Hollywood's Firefighters Pension Fund initiated a complaint against Thompson and other executives. The complaint accused the CEO of failing to tell investors about the federal probe before he unloaded over 31% of his stock, taking in $15.1 million in proceeds. So people are asking the question, like, do we have a kid who maybe was seeing a psychiatrist, MK Ultra style, and they somehow activated this kid to go kill this CEO so that he would never testify because he knows where bodies are buried? We're talking about a monopoly. Now, of course, like, what's going to happen if Brian Thompson was being investigated by the DOJ? Is this case going to still go on? We don't know. Again, we're just putting on our conspiracy hats for fun because we're allowed to think, and you have permission to think about this case. This is not a typical candidate for a brazen assassination. In legal documents, the fund said that Thompson and other company execs sold over $117 million worth of United Healthcare common stock during the 4-month period when they knew that the federal antitrust investigation was going on, but the public did not. So Brian Thompson was under some heat. Could this be related to why Brian Thompson went and shot him? We don't know. But this is crazy. This is very interesting. All right, you guys, just going to very quickly throw it just once more to another one of our advertisers, this time American Financing, because I know that there are so many people out there that are feeling the stress about giving your family a memorable holiday. You're not alone. The prices remain higher than ever. A lot of Americans are maxing out their credit cards. Now is the perfect time to take control of your finances and pay off that debt. If you're a homeowner, American Financing can help you unlock the equity in your home and you can start saving. Their customers save $800 a month on average. Just imagine what that could mean for your family. Plus, if you act now, you can even delay 2 mortgage payments, giving you the extra cash for the season. It would be so nice to start off the year without that debt and those monthly minimum payments. It costs nothing to find out how much you could be saving. Holidays are going to be here before you know it. So call one of American Financing's salary-based mortgage consultants today. You can call 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800 795-1210, or visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. Again, that's americanfinancing.net/Owens. All right, guys, I want to quickly jump into your comments before I hop off because I've been speaking to you guys all day. I just wanted to quickly give you this update to see what you guys think. Okay, in the chat, one person is saying, I am not buying that this is the guy. I think it's the guy. I think it's actually the guy. And I am questioning what programs he was involved in. I want to know more about his family. I want to know about who his father is. Was his father one of the people that was potentially being burned because of this monopoly? Why fixate on, again, a problem that you would not have? Because obviously you seem to, you're the cream of the crop, right? You've risen to the top. You're valedictorian. Your whole life is set before you. What makes you turn into a radical? What actually radicalized you? I believe that the university campuses are what's radicalizing so many of these students, right? Personally. And I know, because I know my history about MK Ultra, because I've read Chaos, I know that these tend to be CIA breeding grounds. Many of these university campuses that you would never suspect were involved in the MK Ultra program. And it's important to learn about that piece of America. Read that book, Chaos. I tell you to read it all the time. Really important to read it. This person writes that he was probably bored. This person says gender studies for sure. No, engineering. He's a brilliant guy. This is no dummy. So he thought through the consequences. He thought through everything that he was doing. I don't think he's doing this because he wanted to be famous. This then brings us to the Boston bombing, all the strange connections to the FBI. I just don't trust him. My instinct is saying that there's a lot more to the story. But we wanted to update you guys because this is happening right now. I'm wondering if someone helped him plan that escape, if he just made a mistake by going into McDonald's. Hey, listen, I love a quarter pounder as much as the next person, but I feel like if you assassinate someone in broad daylight, like maybe don't do that. Wearing the exact same outfit that you are wearing, not the most brilliant move at all. Did he want to get captured? Are they going to kill him before he can testify? Are they going to kill the guy that killed the guy? I don't know. But I'm saying, you guys, hang on, because it's getting incredibly interesting. This person says this is an MK Ultra operative drone Manchurian candidate. Yes, none of that stuff is conspiracy. Learn the truth about the history of MK Ultra, learn about Ted Kaczynski, and it is shocking to see how so many people were just being experimented on, and they were uniquely picking people that were genius. That's why this sends a chill down my spine, that he was a Ted Kaczynski stan. That's why it makes me uncomfortable. And, vigilante justice is never the answer. It is sad that his sons, Brian Thompson's sons, will grow up without a father. Brian Thompson is a victim. Brian Thompson also victimized a lot of people. I want to say that as well. Never an excuse to be celebrating the death of someone in broad daylight. It's just wrong and it's backwards. But I hope that I've at least given you guys a clear picture on what exactly it is that's going on. We're going to stay on top of the story, but I just wanted to give you that quick update now that you've had 3 full hours of Candace today. We'll see you guys tomorrow.